Singing, dancing, breathing. In Iran, these are not rights. They are crimes. We are revealing 13 of them. What if the simple act of singing the song could land you in a cold, dark cell? What if dancing with joy in the street could get you arrested and publicly shamed? This is not a dystopian novel. This is the shocking everyday reality for millions in Iran, enforced by a regime that fears its own people's happiness. We are about to begin our expose on the 13 most absurd and terrifying rules that turn life into a crime. The first one targets the very sound of a woman's voice. Number 1, a woman singing alone in public. In the Islamic Republic of Iran, a woman's solo voice is considered haram, forbidden, believed to be too seductive, too powerful. Women are silenced, their melodies deemed a threat to public morality. Think about Shervin Hajipour. He wrote a song, Baraye, using tweets from Iranians about why they were protesting. It became an anthem. For that song, which featured female voices, he was arrested. But what happens when this suppression of joy meets the digital age? The regime's response is even more chilling. Number 2, dancing. The simple, universal expression of joy is a criminal offense. Recently, a young couple, Astiyaj Haghigi and Amir Mohammed Ahmadi, posted a video of themselves dancing gracefully in front of Tehran's Azadi Tower. Their sentence? 10.5 years in prison, each. They were not leading a protest. They were not calling for revolution. They were just dancing. The regime saw their joy as an act of defiance, a crime so severe it warranted a decade of their young lives stolen. But stealing youth and joy is just the beginning. The next rule targets something even more fundamental: what a woman can or cannot wear. Number 3, the crime of improper hijab. This is the one the world now knows because of one name: Mahsa Amini. A 22-year-old woman visiting Tehran, arrested by the so-called morality police because a few strands of her hair were visible. She was taken into custody for re-education. She never came out alive. Her death in their custody ignited a nationwide uprising, led by women chanting, "Woman, life, freedom." The regime's response was brutal, but Mahsa's name is a reminder that in Iran, a single strand of hair can be a death sentence. And this control extends from your body to the companions you keep, even the four-legged kind. Number 4, walking your dog. It sounds unbelievable, but authorities have repeatedly declared walking dogs in public spaces like parks to be a crime. They claim it causes panic and is a symbol of westernization. Pet owners have had their beloved animals violently confiscated on the street, thrown into vans, and taken to unknown locations, many never to be seen again. They are literally tearing families apart, human and animal alike. This war on Western symbols is a constant theme. But what about a simple human gesture of affection? Number 5, holding hands. For an unmarried man and woman, this simple act of affection in public can lead to arrest, flogging, and imprisonment. The regime's obsession with controlling personal relationships creates a climate of constant fear. Young people are forced to live in the shadows, their relationships deemed illicit. A stolen glance, a brief touch, all carry the weight of a potential crime. It is a system designed to crush the human spirit before it can even connect. But if crushing love is a priority, then celebrating it is an even bigger offense. Number 6, celebrating Valentine's Day. The state actively cracks down on what it calls a decadent Western custom. Every February, security forces raid shops, confiscating teddy bears, heart-shaped chocolates, and red roses. They are literally arresting flowers. It is not just about stopping a holiday. It is about preventing any celebration of love that is not sanctioned and controlled by the state. It is about erasing joy. And what is a celebration without a drink? In Iran, that too is a serious crime with horrifying consequences. Number 7, consuming alcohol. Since the 1979 revolution, alcohol has been completely banned. The punishment is not just a fine. For a first offense, it can be 80 lashes. For repeat offenses, it can even be the death penalty. People have been executed for drinking alcohol. Meanwhile, a dangerous black market thrives, selling unregulated, often poisonous bootleg liquor that has blinded and killed thousands. The regime's prohibition does not stop drinking, it just makes it deadly. The control over what you consume extends to what you hear. The next rule is an assault on the ears. Number 8, playing un-Islamic music. This includes most Western pop, rock, and rap. The regime has a long history of raiding music stores, smashing instruments, and arresting musicians. Underground musicians risk everything to create and share their art, recording in secret basements and distributing their work online, always looking over their shoulder. For them, a guitar chord can be as dangerous as a protest sign. This desire to silence and segregate is nowhere more visible than in the nation's favorite pastime. Number 9, women entering a sports stadium. For decades, women were banned from watching men's sports, especially soccer. The justification was that they needed to be protected from the vulgar atmosphere. This led to the tragic story of Sahar Kodayari, known as the Blue Girl. A passionate soccer fan, she disguised herself as a man to enter a stadium. When she was caught and faced a prison sentence, she set herself on fire outside the courthouse and died. Her sacrifice brought international press. And if they control what you see, they are even more obsessed with controlling what is said. Number 10, practicing independent journalism. Iran is one of the world's biggest jailers of journalists. Reporting on anything that contradicts the state's narrative, protests, corruption, human rights abuses, is treated as espionage and acting against national security. Reporters like Nilufar Hamedi and Elahe Mohammadi, the two female journalists who first broke the story of Mahsa Amini, were thrown in prison. Their crime, telling the truth, they faced charges that could keep them locked away for years, all for doing their job. The truth is the regime's greatest enemy. And speaking that truth, even in the most general terms, is the ultimate transgression. Number 11, criticizing the supreme leader or the government. This is a red line that guarantees a prison sentence. Vague laws against spreading propaganda against the system are used to silence any and all dissent. Countless activists, lawyers, and ordinary citizens are languishing in notorious prisons like Evan simply for a social media post or a private conversation that was reported to authorities. In Iran, your thoughts can be your crime. And while they police thoughts, they also police identity, leading to one of their most brutal and hidden persecutions. Number 12, being part of the LGBTQ+ community. Same-sex relations are punishable by methods that include flogging and, for men, the death penalty. The regime officially denies the very existence of gay people in Iran. This forces an entire community to live in terror and secrecy. Many face honor killings from their own families, with the state looking the other way. It is a silent, state-sanctioned genocide of identity. From who you love, we come to the final, most personal crime, what you believe. Number 13, apostasy, or converting from Islam. This is considered one of the most severe offenses, punishable by death. While the state officially recognizes certain minority religions, leaving Islam for any of them or for no religion at all is a capital crime. Christian converts, Baha'is, and others face intense persecution. Their places of worship are raided, their holy books confiscated, and their community leaders imprisoned on false charges. Your soul is not your own. It belongs to the state. 13 crimes: singing, dancing, loving, believing, living. These are not crimes. They are the essence of being human. The regime in Iran is not just enforcing laws. It is waging a war on humanity itself, a war on joy, on truth, and on freedom. And as long as a woman can be killed for a strand of hair or a couple imprisoned for a dance, the world cannot and must not look away. A stadium ticket, a prison sentence. For Sahar Kodayari, it was a death sentence. Why? In many parts of the world, public joy is a celebration of life. But under some regimes, it's seen as a threat, a rebellion. This is the story of how the simple desire to watch a football game became an act of defiance, and how one woman's protest in death exposed a system built on fear. This is what they don't want you to see. First, the crime of being a fan. In the Islamic Republic of Iran, for a woman cheering for her team inside a stadium is not a right. It is a crime. 29-year-old Sahar Kodayari knew this. Her team was Esteglal. Their color was blue. In March of 2019, she wrapped herself in a long coat, pulled a blue wig over her hair, and tried to slip into Tehran's Azadi Stadium disguised as a man. But she was caught. She was arrested and charged with appearing in public without a proper hijab. But what was her real crime? The regime would say it was a matter of religious law, of protecting women's dignity. But many believe her only real crime was daring to demand a moment of joy. She was released on bail, but her freedom was a fragile illusion. A court date loomed, and with it, the terrifying possibility of a prison sentence. What would a judge decide was the proper punishment for wanting to see 90 minutes of football? Second, the verdict of despair. When Sahar returned to the courthouse that September, she overheard a conversation that shattered her world. She was facing a prison sentence of anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. Imagine that reality sinking in. 2 years in a cage for a game. In a world where millions scream in unison for their teams, her one voice was to be silenced in a cell. The contrast is sickening. The joy of the crowd on one side of a wall, the crushing despair of a prison sentence on the other. And in that moment of absolute hopelessness, Sahar made a final, horrifying choice. Outside that courthouse, she set herself on fire. She died from her injuries a week later, becoming a martyr for a cause she never asked to lead. Her death was a silent scream that echoed across the globe. Was anyone listening? Third, the global outcry and the empty stage. The world did listen. Sahar became known as the Blue Girl, a symbol of defiance against oppression. Global outrage mounted, putting immense press. The Iranian regime, feeling the heat of the international spotlight, made a calculated move. They promised change. For a brief moment, they opened the gates, allowing a few thousand women to attend a World Cup qualifying match. But this was not freedom. It was a performance. The women were segregated, penned into a separate section, a cage within the stadium, watched over by a heavy security presence. Was this progress, Or was it just a photo opportunity to appease the world before the gates slammed shut again? Fourth, the system of suppression. The ban on women in stadiums was never just about football. It is part of a much larger, more insidious strategy of control. It is a war on public joy. It is a system that fears the power of its own people, especially its women, gathering together. The same logic is used to ban women from riding bicycles in public, or to prevent female singers from performing solo for mixed audiences. The regime claims it is protecting women, but we must ask, protecting them from what? From joy? From community? From the simple human experience of sharing a public space? No, this is not protection. It is oppression, plain and simple. It is a calculated effort to atomize society, to keep people isolated, fearful, and unable to find strength in each other. Zahar Kodayari just wanted to watch a game. Instead, the world watched her. Her story is not over. It is a challenge to every single one of us not to look away. The memory of the blue girl now fills every empty seat in those stadiums, a silent, powerful testament to the fight for the simple right to be free. A loose strand of hair, a death sentence. This is the horrifying true cost of morality under Iran's brutal regime. It's a system where a simple, personal choice is twisted into a crime punishable by death, where state-sanctioned violence masquerades as religious virtue, and it all begins with a piece of cloth. But this is not just about a mandatory dress code. This is about absolute control. Let's start with the story that set the world on fire. Number 1, the spark. Mahsa Amini was 22 years old. She was visiting Tehran with her family, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. She was arrested by the Gasht-e-Ershad, the so-called morality police, because a few strands of her hair were visible from under her hijab. She was forced into a van, destined for a re-education class. She would never make it out alive. The official story? A sudden, tragic heart attack. But the truth, leaked from the hospital, told a story of catastrophic head injuries, of a skull fracture from severe blows to the head. They tried to bury the truth with her body. Instead, they ignited a revolution. Number 2, the echo. Nika Shakarami was just 16. When the protests erupted, she was on the front lines, a fearless teenager burning her headscarf in a trash can, a video of her defiance spreading like wildfire. It was the last time she was seen alive. For 10 agonizing days, her family searched for her, pleading with authorities who claimed to know nothing. Then they received the call. Her body was in a morgue, her nose smashed, her skull shattered from repeated blows. The regime claimed she fell from a building. But her family and the world knew this was a lie. It was murder. How can a government be so afraid of a 16-year-old girl that their only answer is to extinguish her life? And her story is not an isolated incident. It is a pattern. Number 3, the system of terror. The regime's re-education centers are not classrooms. They are chambers of psychological and physical torture. Women and girls ripped off the streets are subjected to hours of humiliation. They are told their hair, their bodies, their very existence is an instrument of sin. They are beaten, threatened, and systematically broken down. This isn't the work of a few rogue officers. This is a deliberate, state-run policy designed to enforce submission through pure terror. It's a machine built to crush the human spirit. But what happens when that spirit refuses to be crushed? Number 4, the unbreakable cry, woman, life, freedom. This is the chant that rose from Massa's funeral and now echoes across the globe. For every life the regime takes, 1,000 more voices rise up. Schoolgirls tear the portraits of the supreme leader from their textbooks and bravely wave their headscarves in the air. Men stand shoulder to shoulder with women, shielding them from the security forces. The regime has guns, prisons, and a monopoly on violence. But the people of Iran have something far more powerful, an unyielding demand for dignity. They have transformed their grief into a force that the regime can no longer control. Massa's name, Nika's name, and the names of countless others have become symbols not of victimhood, but of resistance. Their stories must be told. Their fight must be seen. Silence is not an option when human lives are on the line. Share their story. Say their names. Let the world know that a strand of hair is not a crime. It is a choice. And for that choice, no one should ever have to pay with their life. Her crime? Existing? Her punishment? Beheading? Her killer? Protected. This is Iran's justice for women. In the Islamic Republic of Iran, a woman's life is valued at half that of a man's. This is not just a societal norm, it is codified into law. And in the darkest corners of this system, a perverse concept called honor killing is not only tolerated, it's practically encouraged. Fathers, brothers, and husbands who murder their female relatives in the name of honor face shockingly lenient sentences. But what happens when a 14-year-old girl simply falls in love? The answer will shake you to your core. Number one, the girl who was sent home to die. Romina Ashrafi was just 14 years old. She ran away from home with a 29-year-old man she loved, desperate to escape an abusive family. The police found her. Despite Romina pleading with the judge, telling him repeatedly that her father would kill her if she was sent back, the law demanded her return. The authorities handed a terrified child back to her executioner, and what he did next, with a farming sickle, is almost too horrific to describe. While Romina slept, her father walked into her room and beheaded her. After the murder, he walked out of the house, sickle in hand, and confessed. He felt no remorse. So what was the punishment for this monstrous act? You would expect life in prison at the very least. You would be wrong. Number two, the law that protects the killer. Romina's father was sentenced to just 9 years in prison. Her boyfriend, for abduction, received 2 years. How is this possible? Article 301 of Iran's Islamic Penal Code explicitly states that a father or paternal grandfather who kills his child is exempt from the qisas, or retribution in kind death penalty. They are only subject to a lesser punishment. The law literally shields them. This isn't an isolated loophole. It's a systemic declaration that a woman's life is disposable if her male guardian deems her dishonorable. And Romina is far from the only victim. Number three, the endless list of names. Think of Mona Haydari, a 17-year-old child bride beheaded by her husband, who then paraded her severed head through the streets of Avaz, smiling for the cameras. Think of Fatemeh Barahi, a 19-year-old forced into marriage, who was also beheaded by her husband because she wanted a divorce. Each story is a nightmare. Each victim, a young woman or girl whose only crime was wanting a life of her own. The regime calls this family disputes. But what is it really? It's state-sanctioned femicide. This is not about culture or tradition. This is about a brutal, misogynistic legal system that fails women at every turn. It tells men that their rage is more important than a woman's right to live. It tells girls like Romina that the blood of these women is on the hands of the Iranian regime. Their laws are the weapon, and honor is the excuse. We cannot look away. We must bear witness to the stories of Romina, Mona, and countless others. Their names must be spoken, and their murderers, along with the system that enables them, must be held accountable. They call it maintaining order. We call it executing for thought. This is the chilling reality no one talks about, a world where having the wrong belief is a capital offense. This is the story of how a regime polices the minds and souls of its own citizens, punishing any deviation with the most extreme prejudice imaginable. We need to bear witness. Number 1, the crime of a question. In the state's eyes, blasphemy isn't just an insult, it's an act of war against the established order. Consider the case of a teacher, a man who had served his community for 20 years. His crime was not an action, but a question posed in a private letter. He asked if the sacred texts could be interpreted in more than one way. That letter was intercepted, and for the regime, that single question was enough. He was paraded on state television, branded a heretic, and sentenced to death. They claimed it was justice, but how can justice exist when a simple question is a death sentence? Number 2, the betrayal of apostasy. Apostasy is the act of leaving the state-sanctioned faith. It is considered the ultimate betrayal, a spiritual treason. We learned of a young woman, only 19 years old, who had secretly embraced a different belief system. She confided in someone she thought was a friend. That friend reported her to the morality police. Her trial lasted less than 1 hour. The verdict was never in doubt. But the regime's cruelty didn't end with her sentence. They forced her family to publicly disown her, to spit on her name, to thank the state for purifying their bloodline. What happens to a society when family is forced to become an instrument of state terror? Number 3, the scholar who knew too much. Sometimes the crime is simply knowledge. A respected university professor spent his life studying the history of his nation's faith. He uncovered inconvenient truths, historical facts that contradicted the regime's official narrative. He published his findings in a small academic journal. Within a week, he was gone. The state accused him of sowing discord and insulting religious sanctities. They didn't just silence him, they erased him. His books were burned, his name was stricken from university records, and his students were warned never to speak of him again. He became a ghost. And the question that haunts us is, how many other ghosts are there? Number 4, the price of a paintbrush. Even art is not safe. An artist created a series of abstract paintings. To you or me, they were swirls of color. To the regime, they were coded messages of dissent, a mockery of the divine. They said his use of a particular shade of blue was an insult to a holy figure. It sounds insane because it is. He was arrested in a midnight raid. His art was declared filth and destroyed. He was sentenced to 100 lashes and a decade in a prison from which few ever return, all for a color. This isn't about protecting faith. This is about wielding faith as a weapon. This is about absolute control, not just over your body, but over your soul. And we must not look away. The regime's final, brutal weapon, a noose. Majid Reza Ranavard was its target. Your freedom is next. This is a story about the price of defiance, told in 4 acts of state-sponsored terror. Number 1, the spectacle of cruelty. This isn't about law. This is about sending a message written in blood. Take Majid Reza Ranavard, a 23-year-old protester. His crime? Demanding a life of dignity. They didn't hide their crime. They hung him from a construction crane in the pre-dawn cold, a public spectacle for all to see. His trial was a sham, lasting mere hours, with a court-appointed lawyer who argued against him. But what they did to his family after the execution reveals an even deeper level of depravity. Number 2, the illusion of justice. The regime wants the world to see a courtroom, a judge, a process. But behind the curtain, T. Mohsen Shakari was accused of waging war against God. A charge so vague, so medieval, it can mean anything they want it to mean. He was denied a real lawyer. He was tortured into a confession. The verdict was decided before he ever stepped into the room. He was executed just 23 days after his arrest. A horrifying speed. But there's a pattern to who they target first and why it's so terrifyingly strategic. Number 3, extinguishing the future. Look at the faces of the condemned. They are young. They are artists, athletes, students. They are the nation's vibrant future, and the regime sees them as its greatest threat. Majid Reza was a wrestler. Mohsen, a cafe worker who loved video games. Nika Shakarami, just 16, disappeared after burning her headscarf in protest. Her body returned to her family with signs of horrific trauma. The regime isn't just killing people, it is methodically executing hope itself. But for every public execution, countless others disappear into a black hole of secret prisons and silent killings. And what happens inside those walls is a horror we are only beginning to uncover. Number 4, the weaponization of grief. The execution is not the end of the punishment. It is the beginning of the family's torment. Families are threatened. They are forbidden from holding public funerals. They are forced to bury their children in secret, in unmarked graves in the dead of night, often without even knowing the location. The goal is to erase them from memory, to pretend they never existed, to make their sacrifice mean nothing. But they cannot erase what we now know. They cannot unring this bell. Their names must be our rallying cry. Majid Reza Ranavard, Mohsen Shakari, Nika Shakarami, Sarina Esmailzadeh. Say their names, share their stories. The regime is counting on the world to look away. Do not give them that satisfaction. Your voice, your attention is a lifeline. It is the one weapon they truly fear. The regime wants silence, but the streets of Iran are screaming. This is what they do not want you to know. In the face of unimaginable brutality, a fire is burning, a fire of defiance. This is the story of that fire, told through the lives it has claimed and the spirits it cannot break. First, the price of truth. In Iran today, telling the truth is an act of treason. Journalists, artists, and poets are hunted. Their crime? Bearing witness. Take the case of Toumaj Salehi, a rapper whose only weapon was his lyrics. His song spoke of poverty, of corruption, of the people's righteous anger. For this, he was abducted, tortured, and sentenced to death. A death sentence for a song. But his voice was not the only one they tried to extinguish, and the methods they use are becoming more and more depraved. Second, the war on Iran's future. The regime sees educated women, vibrant teenagers, and even children as the ultimate threat. So they are systematically targeting the young, the bright, the hopeful. Consider Nika Shakarami. She was just 16 years old when she joined the protests in 2022, burning her headscarf in an act of pure courage. She disappeared that night. For 10 days, her family searched frantically only to be handed her broken body. The official story they were given was suicide, but the evidence points to something far more sinister, a brutal murder at the hands of the very people who were supposed to protect her. And she is just one of hundreds. What happens when a government declares war on its own children? Third, the theater of death. To maintain their grip, the regime stages show trials that are a grotesque mockery of law. Detainees, often bearing visible signs of horrific torture, are paraded on television. They are forced to confess to crimes they did not commit. They are denied lawyers, their families threatened into silence. Then comes the final barbaric act, execution. Young men like Majid Reza Ranavard, publicly hanged from a construction crane, his body left as a gruesome warning to others. They did not just kill him. They made his murder a public spectacle. This is not justice. This is state-sponsored terror broadcast for the world to see, if only the world would look. But behind this wall of fear, something unexpected is happening. Despite the terror, despite the executions and the torture, the spirit of resistance endures. For every voice they silence, 10 more rise up. For every life they take, 1,000 more pledge to continue the fight. The names of the fallen, Mahsa, Nika, Tumaj, have become rallying cries echoing from rooftops and scrawled on city walls. They are painting the streets with the colors of protest, cutting their hair in public acts of defiance, and sharing their stories online, creating an archive of truth the regime cannot erase. The Islamic Republic wants you to believe it is all-powerful. But the people of Iran are sending a different message, a message that echoes from the streets, from the prisons, and from the graves. Woman, life, freedom. A message that says, we are still here, and we will not be silenced.